Hello. If this video has appeared on your screen, then it's materialized right when you needed it to. So, I am Spencer, and this is Real Television, and today is going to be a little bit different than my previous videos because, and I'll just jump straight into the good news because this week I don't even know how to explain it, but my guides and my higher self basically just showed me what my gift is. I guess, for lack of a better term, that's all I can say. And I don't know if anybody else has this, but it might just be unique to me. But I call it Prism Vision. PRISM space VISION, just to be sure, just to be clear. So it's pretty crazy just because I've been able to use it for myself so far, and it's just been really eye-opening, to say the least, to see myself in a character such as Ghost Rider, which, by the way, this is only the first part. It's going to be more of a podcast style-ish video series, like a mini series within a series, if that makes sense. But this is the first part, and it's going to be kind of mind-blowing, so just putting that out there, that to take what resonates and leave what does not. And I'm serious about that, 100% serious. But with that being said, let me go ahead and just put a disclaimer real quick. So just keep that in mind. I've also linked some clips that are relevant to what I'm going to be talking about today. And they're just clips from other movies that resonated with me, but also felt important to include for you guys. So take it as kind of like homework, in the sense of like looking at these scenes and trying to find the symbolism and the emotion in it, and see if there's something that happened in your life that coincides with what's happening with him, even though it's not, or them, or whatever, you know. It's very hard to explain how this gift exactly works, but I'll show you what I mean based on what I'm going to be talking about. It's going to be pretty raw, pretty vulnerable for me, more so than I've been in past videos, to be honest. And that's partially why I feel like it's taken me a hot minute for me to actually get this video out, because I've just been like stunned, like, oh God, like, holy shit, and I think some of you will get it, some of you won't, and that's okay. Like I said in the disclaimer, it's not going to be for everybody. But it is timeless. It's not going to go away anytime soon as far as the message here. So no matter when you see this in the future or right now as I post it, it's relevant. Don't worry. It just requires a lot of introspection and looking up symbolisms, and I don't even know what else, but something that might correlate to your life is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, that's the good news for me. Go ahead and share in the comments what your good news is for the week. It doesn't have to be as profound, obviously. We just want to be able to make sure the community can share what it is that's going on in their life that's both good or bad, and we can help support or congratulate depending on what it is. So I may have to do a little bit of cuts here and there just because the room is hot, and yeah, I have to turn on the AC. So I apologize for any cuts in the scene, just because if you see my cheeks get like red, that just means the room is getting hotter, and there might be a jump cut here in a minute. But with that being said, like I said, we're talking about the 2007 movie Ghost Rider with Nicolas Cage in it. I know it's not like the best Ghost Rider, but to be honest, I personally think that we wouldn't have Marvel where it is right now without this movie or other movies before it, like the Peter Parker Spider-Man movies with Tobey Maguire. But with that being said, this movie, I'm sorry I keep saying that. I'm just like nervous but excited to share what this message is. And this movie has been one of my all-time favorite movies. I don't care if you think it's cheesy. That's partially why I like it. The stupid humor in it, like the part where Ghost Rider gets slammed with the semi truck against the train, and then it goes around, pans around, and you see the swinging sign that says "How's my driving?" It's just so ridiculous, but it's so good too. But this isn't to say that I personally believe in like a heaven or a hell. It's literally a state of being, in my opinion. A personal hell, as they call it. At least I've heard. I don't know if anybody else has heard of that, but or the phrase "heaven on earth," stuff like that. I feel like those are relevant to this particular video because it's a scale, right? It's, at least for me, that's how I see it, is that those two things are on a scale, one at one end and one on the other. A state of being, a state of mind, a belief system that you live by day to day. But with that being said, I suppose we should just get straight into it. There's going to be a jump cut just because I have to turn on the air conditioning one more time. But like I said, I'm so excited to share this. Like I said, I'm going to be real vulnerable. Take what resonates, leave what does not. Okay. All right. So I'll just go ahead and start reading what I wrote down and kind of go from there. I'm not going to go into too much detail about things just because a lot of it is stuff that's going to be in the book. But with that being said, let's just start. There's not really any way to introduce it. So let me just pull this over and go from there. Let me get this a little bit smaller so I can see. Okay. So I apologize if I'm not looking directly into the camera, but like I said, I'm reading it. So just sit back and relax. I have no idea how long this is going to be, but I would say probably about 30 minutes. So let me just read it and I'll look forward to your comments. So, as a kid, I really enjoyed a lot of cool things like werewolves, dragons, centaurs, mermaids, etc. The whole smorgasbord of them. That included movies and video games as well. But one movie that really stuck with me was the movie Ghost Rider with Nicolas Cage, like I said before. I know that the movie isn't really top-notch or whatever when it comes to superhero movies, but think of it this way. It was one of the first superhero movies to come out, and we wouldn't have Marvel as we know it today without it. That's sort of how life is, right? Where we figure out who we are through trying things over and over again until we get the lesson. This movie blew my mind for no other reason than that it really resonated with me and what my life purpose is, what my soul mission is. I know this might sound way too woo-woo for some people, but if that's the case, then this video might not be for you. But if you are curious, I would stick around. There might be something in here that you know, or that you need to know through the lessons of my life. This is actually one part of a video series on the movie Ghost Rider. It was way too much information that I channeled while watching that I couldn't even watch 5 seconds of it without getting some kind of download. But it didn't start happening until about the middle of the movie, where the Hellcycle transformed from a regular motorcycle to its fully flamed self. But before I get into that, though, I need to explain what was revealed to me as my spiritual gift. I call it Prism Vision, hence the name of my channel. It's amazing what your intuition can tell you before you truly even understand the scope of it. I picked that before I knew. It just came to me. My guides actually suggested it to me, and I love them for it. I didn't realize how true that name would be. I will use Interstellar as the example of how this works. I'll put a picture up here for you to visualize, or you could watch the clip that I put in the description. But the part in that movie where the main character, Cooper, aka Matthew McConaughey, is inside the black hole and he sees all these different boxes and lines of time. It's sort of like that for me. I don't see anything crazy or special. It's all in emotion and psychology. But I'm no expert. But I grew up in such a way that I learned quickly and I grew up fast. I won't go into too much detail, but let me just phrase it this way. If you know the video game, Destiny 2, you'll know that they are basically invincible even though they die over and over. That was me. That's why I really enjoy Destiny 2, because it's got a lot of layers when it comes to spirituality for me personally. Like working with light and dark within myself. It was tower moment after tower moment. Even though I thought I would be, or even when I thought I would be safe, another tower moment would happen to me or around me. Notice I said to me and not for me. That was my perspective back then. It caused me to become fearful and full of anxiety and depression. My self-esteem had gotten so low that I was desperate for any sort of light I could get my hands on. Otherwise, the darkness would take hold and make me wish I was dead. I think a lot of people can relate to that. If you can, then let me tell you right now that you probably have a soul mission that is so powerful that you had to go through all of that before you could really understand the true nature of your life and who you are. I really think you should watch the rest of the video if you relate to that on any level. Pun fully intended. Destiny 2, video games, etc. That's not to say that life is a game, because it's certainly not. It's just a metaphor. But a really helpful one at that for me personally, and not in the usual meaning of that phrase. I apologize for the dogs barking outside. You see, I see the world in such a way that I can see what someone went through based on how they act. Not always exactly, but I can tell that someone lashed out a certain way based on what was said because of some event that happened in their past. I can understand it because I have immersive empathy on top of prism vision. For me, immersive empathy manifested through the movies and stories I consumed, such as the movie Alien. I imagined myself in that universe with such intensity that it scared me. I could feel the fear of the unknown, the idea of being scared and alone, and feeling like everything is out to get you. But I couldn't name it back then. All I knew was that the xenomorph was scary to me on a visceral level, to the point that I couldn't yawn at night, getting ready for bed with the lights off, because I was absolutely terrified that a facehugger would fly and get me while my eyes were closed. I probably watched it way too young, but now I see the symbolism in it. I mention this because it's important to what I uncovered in Ghost Rider for myself, and in turn, possibly someone out there watching this series. Symbolism and immersive empathy is important to cultivating prism vision. Just like in Interstellar, you can pluck a specific string of time. Not literally, but what I mean is that you can pluck all sorts of meaning in stories and media in general through introspection and symbolism. Looking inside and outside yourself at the same time. You do this through your passion, and for me, it's movies. I mention movies as my passion because it was such a strong passion that every time I tried to settle for something else and thought about the future I could have had in my life, there would be such a deep longing and sadness that I can't even put into words. But it doesn't help that every time I tried to settle for a regular job or something practical, it would somehow end abruptly or just simply not work out. But through spirit and understanding myself and my soul mission, I know that it's not only possible, but that it's written in the stars for me. Again, pun fully intended. And that I was never meant to be normal. Normal is a controlled adjective that doesn't really serve anyone, in my opinion. But as far as movies go, I really don't care what I do in the film industry, only that I'm a part of it. Although it would be awesome to act, even if it's just in some B-movie, scary movie somewhere. The magic of filmmaking is precious to me. That's partially why I ran from it at first, subconsciously. I didn't want to ruin that magic because I had heard stories of how insane the working hours were and how the production assistants were treated on set. But at the same time, if I really wanted it, I would be okay with that. Right? That's debatable. But with all of that being said, let me start with the first section I wanted to talk about with Ghost Rider in the first part of this miniseries. Within a series. Excuse me, I can't read. So as of this writing, my family and I, where I am living right now, cleared out a portion of our storage unit today. The reason this is relevant is because I kept a lot of my art in that storage unit, ever since I was a preteen and onward until about the age of 17. While reviewing them, I saw signs of what were parts of my soul contract, such as a dragon coming out of a cave and the sky was full of different planets, or a werewolf or a motorcycle. Hell, I even drew the Hellcycle from this movie around the age of 13. This movie came out in 2007 too. I don't mind dating myself here, but you get the picture. The signs were all there for me. Dragons and werewolves are relevant, but you'll understand why in later iterations of this miniseries. But I noticed as I got older that they turned from bright and fun to dark and pupilless monsters. Angry, fighting, and sharp points instead of rounded edges. A lot of my dragons at first were chill and not really doing anything except posing like they were the draconic Mona Lisa. But over time, they roared, they gained fangs, they flew in the sky, they fought, they gored each other with their horns. The werewolves became rabid and carried human limbs in their claws in the middle of the dark forest. That type of thing. These were the ways I was trying to understand the world. I grew up not knowing that trans people were a thing. I grew up Mormon, and so that language or anything LGBTQ plus was definitely not okay, or at the very least, very taboo. So as a preteen and then teenager, in addition to hormones being all crazy and dysphoria that I didn't know how to name, was very taboo. So as a preteen, oh, I already read that. I just ended up feeling so confused and really just uncomfortable. My stomach problems turned into chronic disease. My self-esteem was at an all-time low, so much so that my mom was afraid to leave me alone sometimes. I knew she was. I could see it and I could hear it in her words, the love she tried to weave in them. I'm not saying all of this for pity either. I'm just painting a picture so that you can understand how I came to understand all of this, and how you can too for yourself if you decide to see the blueprint of the universe, or at least confirmation proof, or at least the part that is relevant to you. I was so distraught and depressed inside that the only solace I had was through art. It literally saved my life. I understand now that when I'm paid to do art, it drains me. But when I do art for myself, it's healing, it's calming. I used that as my coping mechanism. I'm sure some other artists can relate to that, and you don't have to be good at art to be called an artist. If it helps you, that's all that matters. My point here is that I was dragging myself through the mud first, and only then did it help start the healing process. With every piece that I did, or every time pen or pencil touched the paper of whatever it was that I drew, That's the reason it got dark. I was trying to work through my anger about myself, at life, at my stomach problems, my family problems, at the world, because I couldn't understand why the world was the way that it was, full of pain and mean, judgy people. I admired LGBT people at my school because I wanted that freedom they had. I wanted to accept myself on a subconscious level. I personally believe that if I was allowed to be myself back then, it wouldn't have been so bad. But of course, my parents were doing the best that they could at the time and had no idea that I was trans, because how could they? They knew about trans people, but they only knew what the media told them, which is the shadow aspect of having prism vision. You can see how they can use that to make you think certain things about yourself or other people. That's why there's this big push to have inclusive stories, in my personal opinion. Inclusive books, movies, games, etc. only helps the collective. It isn't meant to offend. It's simply to paint a brighter picture of how the world could be if we accepted our differences. I got off track again. My apologies, but I was trying to show you how exhausted I was emotionally, physically, and mentally before I even became a teenager. That's not because I'm trans, but for me it was part of it. Cis people could go through the same thing or the similar to it, but they just don't have that extra surprise of being the opposite gender in your head. The other thing is that I felt cursed for being different, cursed for having health problems, cursed that I didn't want to live. The world was too hard, too mean, too cruel, and I didn't want any part of it. If it was going to be like that the entire time. But as I got older and got more into my spiritual journey, I realized that all of this had to happen in order for me to understand the scope of what my soul mission was. I needed to understand exactly what people were feeling on a personal level and through stories. Because stories are pulled from someone's experience somewhere. Even if it's a portion that is used for another story but tweaked. Or pulled from a different story and added to the one they're making. Whatever you want to call it. That's why they say there's nothing original out there anymore. We've explored a lot of different aspects of being human in different scenarios and different planets and circumstances that it becomes boring. It's not new and exciting anymore, but it can be. If you can see the blueprint and enjoy life as it was intended, full of creation and joy, but you can't get there until you heal yourself. Once you heal yourself, you heal your inner world and it ripples out. That's why in film you have critically acclaimed movies, even if you don't think this. I personally believe that big films were created in a flow state of consciousness. They resonated with so many people because of it, which is a byproduct of co-creating with spirit. But back to Ghost Rider. The portion I was talking about before adding in more relevant information about what I'll be talking about with this miniseries, the part where Johnny's motorcycle turns from a regular chopper to the Hellcycle with his touch as the transformed Ghost Rider. I think of it as myself having accepted myself already, but that I was still coming to terms with understanding the world, and so I felt like I couldn't control anything or myself, and I was doomed to walk the earth under someone else's wishes and commands, just like Ghost Rider. Whether that was at church and forced to be a gender that I was not on the inside, or societal expectations about what it meant to be the gender I was at birth, or just in general not being able to be myself for fear of being outcasted as an outlaw of society. No one understands because they fear me, because they don't understand me. That saying, quote, "We fear what we can't understand," comes to mind. But the thing is, with Ghost Rider, he uses these things meant to hurt him against those who caused the hurt. He was a mirror. That's the most powerful thing you can do, is be a mirror for yourself. Flip the perspective in multiple different ways. Think of it like a crystal with multiple different cuts of angles. If you put that crystal in a ray of light, it shows the light projection at a certain angle. But if you change the angle of the crystal, it moves that projected light on the other side at a different area around you, revealing new insights about yourself or your life. It's like I used everything that was meant to hurt me and let it fuel me rather than letting it burn me up from the inside. That's why by the end of the movie, you see that Johnny has gained control over the Ghost Rider and changes from each version of himself as needed based on what aspect of himself is needed in that moment. That's what we all need to do when it comes to trauma. We need to see it at different angles and take what resonates and leave what does not. That's why that saying exists in the spiritual community. It's important to not take things at face value or at certain perspectives just because someone told you that that was the only perspective possible. It's like a puzzle. Some people love them and some people hate them, and then there's people that don't mind a puzzle but would rather not. It takes dedication to cultivate healing within yourself, to be able to hone your gifts. Everyone is capable of getting your clairaudience, which is clear hearing, clairsentience, which is clear feeling, claircognizance, clear knowing, and clairvoyance, clear seeing. Those are just the main four, but there are more than just four. Those are just the ones that we can get easily on this planet. It's a puzzle that needs to be solved in order to find true happiness and joy in life. By chasing the things you like, and for me that was movies, art, and writing, you end up finding things out about yourself that you never knew before. We could possibly make a video on different ways I've experienced them and what I saw personally at different points in this journey too, as far as the spiritual journey goes. I've been on again, off again relationship with spirit up until last year, where I started to take it more seriously. I've gotten to the point that nothing can hurt me anymore. Like the hellfire that consumes Johnny to become Ghost Rider, nothing can hurt him anymore. Not that negativity or anything like that respect can happen anymore once you wake up, but that you know where it comes from now and you know how to protect yourself from it and why it exists in the first place. For me, I continue to take what is meant to hurt me or tell me I'm too much and use it as fuel for my own fire, my own happiness. I alchemized it and set that white hot metal of negativity on an anvil, which is groundedness, and molded it to fit my journey, pounding it with a hammer of justice so much that it empowered me instead. I took my chains and used them for my benefit, just like Ghost Rider uses the chains that Blackheart tried to use to hang him with at the beginning of the movie. We all need to learn how to alchemize the darkest parts of ourselves. The embarrassment, the shame, the guilt, the sadness, all of it. All of it that is our own, not someone else's. We have to take those leaps of faith down the side of a skyscraper with our own metaphorical hellcycles, our passions, and find our own connections to why those things work for us the way that they do, and realize that those were never coincidences. They were part of your journey back home, or your journey up your own Mount Everest, as I talk about in my book that I'm writing that is very much like this episode. You have to be radically kind to yourself and other people. This is how we get from where we are now to where we want to go. That doesn't mean that you go without boundaries, but you have to be unapologetically yourself. But it all starts within, and you can't be projecting, by the way. I will add that. Finding that spark that eventually turns into a flame and then a roaring inferno, and you let it engulf you to the point that no one can deny that you've changed for the better. With that being said, I have a challenge for you. Look at what you're attracted to, what you like, what you enjoy, hell, even what you're afraid of. Because they're all trying to say something to you and teach you something for your life specifically. They are the tools expressly written in your soul that will be the easiest way to get you to remember again. You just have to find the blueprint in them. Start now. Start looking within yourself for the answers because it is all there. I guarantee it. So that's for part one. I almost said fart. Excuse me. But basically, this whole series is going to start turning into something like this, where I learn something about my life and how you all can try to implement that same type of introspection for a spiritual purpose for your own life. But with that being said, I'll end this with talking about my books. And they're basically just, one of them is real television, just like this whole channel, which talks, just like I said in this, about climbing my own Mount Everest and how you can too, spiritually speaking, of course. And then the other one is a 3-part series that I'm currently writing, which uses Norse mythology, in addition to like futuristic, not far into the future, sci-fi, confirmation verb. I don't know where those are coming from, but basically sci-fi biopunk universe, with animal companions and military tactics and whatnot, and rebellion and all that. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and subscribe and like the video. It helps me a lot. And with that being said, keep your minds and your hearts open. Peace. Check for part 2.